How does someone go from being a beloved Christian TikToker to one of the internet's most shocking scandals? Jorobe preached respect, kindness, and morality, winning over millions. But behind the scenes, a web of lies, manipulation, and betrayal unraveled. What really happened? Let's dive into the story that exposed the truth about Jorobe. Meet John Robert Bell, better known as Jorobe, a TikTok sensation who built his fame preaching respect, equality, and positivity. With over 5.7 million followers across his accounts, he was the epitome of a virtuous influencer. But was it all a facade? In July 2021, Jorobe vanished from social media. His TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter accounts were all deactivated. The reason? Disturbing allegations of grooming underage boys surfaced, shaking his fan base to the core. Dylan, a fellow TikToker, accused Jorobe of using his platform to prey on young boys, including himself. He recounted how Jorobe initiated contact, joined group Zoom calls, and made inappropriate propositions such as inviting Dylan to a one-bedroom Airbnb for his 18th birthday and offering alcohol. Dylan wasn't alone. Others came forward with similar stories, painting a troubling picture of manipulation and misconduct. As the allegations gained traction, the hashtag #CancelJorobe amassed over 58,000 views on TikTok. The community was in shock, grappling with the stark contrast between Jorobe's public persona and the serious accusations against him. Now, let's go back to Jorobe's glorious days. Jorobe built his entire TikTok persona around being holier than thou. As a youth pastor and church office manager, his videos were about respecting women, standing against racism and homophobia, and creating a safe space for young people. Jorobe portrayed himself as a devout Christian youth pastor and a moral beacon on TikTok. His content emphasized respect for women, equality, and social justice, and he often spoke out against issues like misogyny, racism, and homophobia. However, cracks in his persona began to appear, and his overemphasis on morality led many to question his intentions. Some early posts and statements seemed unusually performative, such as his repeated declarations of support for various social causes. His TikTok videos often featured strong statements about respecting women and opposing societal injustices, but critics felt his tone was more self-promotional than authentic. As time went on, his audience began to notice inconsistencies. He wasn't shy about broadcasting his morality. Tweets like this, "I'm a Christian and I support LGBTQ, BLM, and women's rights," screamed virtue. But as we'll see, his actions told a very different story. He even sold merch with captions like "Be Better," encouraging his followers to live moral lives. And people loved him. Fans flooded his live streams with comments like, "I have so much respect for you," and some even made stan accounts. But as Jorobe's fame grew, so did the suspicions. Why? Because his obsession with respect was oddly excessive. Some people started wondering, was this a genuine crusade or just a way to mask something darker? In late 2020, cracks in Jorobe's perfect image began to show. When the TikToker Gemini official was exposed for inappropriate behavior with minors, fans asked Jorobe to speak out, but instead of addressing it head-on, he stayed silent. Weird, right? For someone claiming to protect young people, this felt off. He later explained his silence, saying the issue was too obvious to comment on. But this wasn't the only time Jorobe avoided condemning a friend. When another TikTok, Calvin Brandel, was exposed for similar actions, Jorobe again stayed quiet, despite photos of them together surfaced online. Why was he so quick to criticize strangers but hesitant to call out friends? Was it loyalty or something more sinister? Then came the bombshell. In 2021, a TikToker named DillJ16 accused Jorobe of grooming underage boys. Dill revealed disturbing details, how Jorobe had used his clout to gain trust, sent inappropriate messages, and even pressured underage fans into discussing intimate topics. Dill wasn't the only one. More accusers came forward, sharing eerily similar stories. Jorobe allegedly promised alcohol Airbnbs and even encouraged one victim to create an OnlyFans once they turned 18. A Google Doc compiled the shocking extent of his actions, including explicit photos, coercion, and manipulation. And get this, he even bragged about being a pastor to justify his behavior, saying, "I may work for God, but I'm not against kids having fun." How does someone hide this kind of behavior for so long? Did his Christian image shield him from scrutiny? When the allegations surfaced, Jorobe's response was complete silence. He deleted his TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, and even LinkedIn. Poof! Gone. But the internet wasn't done with him. Creators like Papa God brought even more attention to the scandal, calling his church to demand accountability. And guess what? The church immediately deleted him from their website. Later, an unofficial statement confirmed he'd been fired and authorities were contacted. It turns out this wasn't even the first time Jorobe had been removed from a church job. One staff member revealed he'd been fired years earlier for refusing to follow strict youth safety protocols. Red flag much? Why weren't these patterns caught earlier? Could this have prevented more harm? Even those who knew him personally weren't surprised. A former university roommate described him as manipulative, homophobic, and obsessed with maintaining a fake Christian persona. According to them, his online presence was all about masking his true nature. As for his fans, they were devastated. Many couldn't believe the same man who preached respect could be capable of such hypocrisy, but others weren't shocked, pointing out how often white knight influencers have hidden dark secrets. Jorobe's story captures both the rise and fall of an online persona built on the ideals of morality and faith. At first glance, he seemed like everything you'd want in a role model, a Christian youth pastor with a mission to create a safe space on TikTok. He championed respect for women, supported social justice causes, and spoke out against issues like misogyny and homophobia. On the surface, he appeared to embody the values of love, kindness, and integrity. But as we now know, appearances can be deceiving. Let's talk about the image he carefully curated. His content was centered on being the good guy, the ally everyone could trust. He constantly emphasized respecting women, uplifting minorities, and standing against injustices. But here's a question. When someone feels the need to repeatedly declare their morality, is it genuine or is it a performance? Jorobe's excessive focus on these issues felt over the top to some, even before any allegations surfaced. Was he trying to convince his audience or himself of his righteousness? Then came the first cracks in his image. When another TikToker was accused of misconduct with minors, Jorobe avoided the topic. For someone who had built his platform around protecting young people, this silence was strange. His reasoning that condemning such actions was too obvious felt like a cop-out. How can someone who claims to be a protector of youth not address such a serious issue? It made people question whether he was truly committed to his principles or just cherry-picking causes that benefited his image. Things became even more suspicious when people noticed his friendship with another creator facing similar accusations. Jorobe, who often called out bad behavior, stayed unusually quiet. Why would someone so vocal about respecting others hesitate to confront someone in his inner circle? Was it loyalty, fear of backlash, or something more sinister? And then the bombshell dropped. A TikToker accused him of inappropriate behavior, sharing evidence of messages and interactions that crossed serious boundaries. This wasn't just one isolated claim. Multiple people came forward, describing a pattern of manipulative behavior. Group chats with minors discussing inappropriate topics, offers to meet under questionable circumstances, and even alleged promises involving alcohol in private meetings painted a troubling picture. Here's something to think about. How does someone in a position of trust, both as a pastor and an influencer, justify these actions to themselves? Did Jorobe believe his facade so deeply that he thought he was untouchable? As the allegations piled up, more disturbing details emerged. Reports suggested he had left a previous church role due to disagreements over youth safety protocols. His current employer removed him from his position as the accusations gained traction. Almost immediately, Jorobe deleted all his social media accounts and effectively disappeared from the internet. For someone who built his life around public attention, this sudden vanishing act spoke volumes. If he had nothing to hide, why not address the allegations and clear his name? Former acquaintances described him as manipulative and inauthentic, claiming his moral persona was nothing more than a mask. One even said that these allegations were consistent with his past behavior. This brings up another question. How much of our trust in influencers is based on what they show us, and how much do we ignore the warning signs? What's perhaps most heartbreaking is the betrayal felt by his followers. Many looked up to him, not just as an influencer but as a symbol of Christian values. By presenting himself as a safe space, he gained the trust of young, impressionable people who are now left questioning their faith in leaders and authority figures. What does it say about someone who uses their platform for harm while preaching love and respect? Jorobe's story serves as a harsh reminder that we shouldn't blindly trust public figures, no matter how virtuous they appear. It also raises bigger questions about accountability. How do we, as viewers, protect ourselves and others from falling for false facades? In the end, the truth about Jorobe isn't just about the allegations, it's about the lessons we can learn. Actions always speak louder than words, and integrity isn't about what you say, but what you do. For someone like Jorobe, who made morality his brand, the fall from grace is particularly stark. But perhaps the most important question is, how many other Jorobes are out there, hiding behind the same masks? Did you know that Jorobe's fall from grace isn't an isolated incident? It's part of a troubling pattern among influencers, especially those who present themselves as moral and spiritual leaders. We've seen it before. Religious leaders and influencers who build their reputations on being good, moral people, only to be exposed for actions that contradict everything they preach. It's shocking, disappointing, and makes you wonder, why does this keep happening? Jorobe wasn't the first, and he won't be the last. From his TikTok videos about respecting women to his claims of creating a safe space for young people, he presented himself as someone trustworthy, someone who always did the right thing. But behind the scenes, the allegations tell a very different story. Doesn't this sound familiar? Think about Carl Lentz, the celebrity pastor of Hillsong Church. He was admired for making Christianity cool and relatable. People looked up to him as a modern spiritual leader, only to find out about his infidelity and moral failures. How does someone who speaks about loyalty and family values turn around and do the opposite? And then there's Josh Duggar, a famous advocate for Christian family values. He was convicted of terrible crimes involving children, crimes that completely shattered the wholesome image he promoted. When someone presents themselves as a moral leader, especially in the name of faith, they're put on a pedestal. People trust them blindly. But shouldn't we ask why they need to keep reminding us how good they are? Is it to inspire, or is it to hide something? When someone constantly says, "Look at me, I'm the good guy," doesn't it make you wonder why they feel the need to say it so much? Actions should speak louder than words, right? Social media takes this issue to a whole new level. Unlike traditional pastors, influencers don't answer to anyone. Churches might have elders or boards to keep leaders in check, even if imperfectly, but influencers operate on their own. They create their own rules, and their followers often trust them without question. This is what makes stories like Jorobe's so dangerous. Platforms like TikTok give influencers direct access to young, impressionable audiences. Jorobe used his position as both a youth pastor and an influencer to build trust. But when that trust is abused, it's the most vulnerable people, young fans, who get hurt. Think about Ravi Zacharias, a world-renowned Christian apologist. For years, he was celebrated for defending the faith intellectually, but after his death, investigations revealed decades of predatory behavior. Like Jorobe, he used his public image to hide what was happening behind the scenes. Does this make you question how much we really know about the people we follow online? One of the biggest issues with cases like Jorobe's is the lack of accountability. In his case, he reportedly left a previous church because he didn't agree with their strict youth safety protocols. If that doesn't raise red flags, what does? And yet, he was able to move to another church and continue building his online platform without anyone stopping to ask questions. It's not just about Jorobe. Carl Lentz, Ravi Zacharias, and others also slipped through the cracks because the systems around them failed. Should churches and platforms have better ways to track these things? Could stricter policies or more transparency have prevented some of this harm? Another part of the problem is us, the followers. People love putting influencers and pastors on pedestals, especially those who talk about faith and morality. It feels good to believe in someone who seems perfect, but perfection doesn't exist. How can we remind ourselves to admire someone without turning a blind eye to warning signs? Former acquaintances of Jorobe described him as manipulative and fake, claiming his online persona was all an act. Sadly, this fits the pattern we've seen time and time again. The louder someone shouts about their values, the closer we should look at their actions. Do you think we as an audience should be more skeptical of public figures? Jorobe's story, and others like it, teaches us some tough lessons. Anyone can say the right things, but it's what they do that really counts. Should we focus less on what influencers say and more on how they act? Accountability is crucial. Social media platforms and churches need better systems to hold leaders accountable. What can we do to ensure those systems are in place? Don't idolize public figures. It's okay to admire someone, but blind faith in anyone, no matter how good they seem, is dangerous. How can we find a balance? Jorobe's story isn't just about one influencer, it's about a much bigger issue. Whether it's on TikTok, in a church, or anywhere else, people in positions of power need to be held accountable. At the same time, we as followers need to stop putting so much faith in public personas. No one is perfect, and the louder someone claims to be, the more questions we should ask. So, what do you think of Jorobe's story? Should platforms like TikTok do more to monitor influencers with young audiences? Let us know in the comments below. And if you found this video eye-opening, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more deep dives.